Well, good afternoon, councillors, members of our community and those who might be tuning in, and welcome to our AGM for 2023. And in opening today's City of Launceston Council AGM, we acknowledge and pay respect to the original owners and the continuing custodians of this unceded land, the Palawa people. In opening, we look at the attendance as well. We do have some apologies. Apologies from Councillor Walker, Councillor Pentridge, Councillor Palmer and Councillor Kai. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. A councillor must declare any interest that a councillor has in a matter before any discussion on that matter commences. Do we have any declared interests today?
Mr. Mayor, Margot Smart.
An apology. Further apologies from the floor. Mrs. Smart. Any further apologies before we move through? There being none, we will move through to the confirmation of minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the annual general meeting of the City of Launceston Council held on the 1st of December 22 be confirmed as true and correct record. Somebody to move. Councillor Harris. A seconder. Deputy Mayor. All of those in favour? The motion is carried. Agenda item number 4, 4.1, with public question time. We have had no public questions on notice as a part of this agenda. 4.2, public questions without notice. Do we have some questions without notice? I do have Mr. Knott noted down here with a question. Frank? No worries. Did you, Mr. Knott, would you like to use the microphone or are you okay?
Frank Knott, 29 Foot Court, Youngtown. Very pleased to be back in this chamber.
Thank you.
Mayor and councillors, on the 29th of November, I forwarded 2 questions to the CEO regarding traffic in Youngtown. Received automated response. When might I expect some responses to those 2 questions?
Sure, Mr. Knott. So our CEO is on leave at the moment. So there is just a little bit of work that's happening in the meantime there. Our acting CEO is obviously helping sift through some of those responses there too.
Understand that, Mayor. Thank you. My main question is today concerns changes to traffic conditions in Hobart Road at Risley Street, where it is now mandatory that drivers in the western lane must turn right into Risley Street. Naturally, this creates bottlenecks in the left lane travelling south. Observations. On Thursday, the 30th of November, this day last week, I witnessed traffic in the left lane backed up within 50 metres of Six Ways intersection and experienced 3 drivers attempting to move from the right lane into the left lane in order to go south. Question, is this a permanent change or still under review? That's the first part of it. It is noted that signage in Hobart Road, directional turning arrows in the right lane, closer to Risley Street, and a sign on the post which says, right lane must turn right, and that's opposite basically the Toyota entrance in Hobart Road, Youngtown. Might it be possible to consider an additional sign, right lane must turn right, closer to Six Ways, so that people are aware of that before they get down closer to Kentucky and they've got to suddenly want to change into the left lane to go south. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knott. No, I can actually give you a couple of responses to those as well, as this has come under council observation. As a part of the road reconstruction, the resealing of the road and the line markings that we lobbied to have done for over a year, that arrow there specifically has been put there, but it is under review at the moment because I myself did see not only 50 metres going back to Six Ways, but it was backed up to Carvilla coming the other way around. So I know that we've had officers out there monitoring that intersection as a part of that redevelopment that did happen earlier this year, and it is definitely under review at the moment. So thank you for bringing that to our attention as well. Thank you. Further questions without notice?
Rodney Sinfield. I do pay rates in Launceston, but I'm actually a Meander Valley councillor. Come into Launceston regularly and pretty alarmed at the intersection or the off lane on the highway up near the Silver Dome connecting to the Kings Meadows connector, and witnessed a brief version, a car made, the vehicles are backed up on the highway hundreds of metres back towards the Silver Dome. They're trying to get off on the road shoulder, but a vehicle that was turning left decided he'd go on ahead, and so made 3 lanes, with the outside lane doing 110 kilometres an hour, him accelerating away in between 2 rows of cars. And so my question is, I know that's a state road. I don't know about Kings Meadows connector as to where Launceston City Council kicks in, but I'm wondering what advocacy, what can be done, what is being done to, in my view, urgently address what seems, it's been happening for a while, but it never used to be like that. You might find 4 or 5 cars down at the roundabout, but now it's, especially at school times and things like that, it seems to have got out of hand very quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And just to give you a little bit of an answer and insight into that we've built and continue to grow a really good relationship with the Minister, with the Department of State Growth, and there is definitely conversations that have been had and that continue to be had around the failing of that intersection. And as a minimum, in our conversations, what we've heard is that there will be at least some signage that comes up saying, that you are approaching queued traffic as you come up, particularly over that crest where that turn-off is. That also has had some look into work from the state government, but this local council has advocated and will continue to advocate for that slip lane there and progress through the state, and also looking into the traffic flow around that roundabout there as well. Yep, so please understand that there is ongoing conversation around that. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions without notice, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Robin Smith. I work in a cafe in Brisbane Street Mall, Coffee Republic. Question, first up, this has been raised by me, the council, about the Christmas tree in Brisbane Street Mall. Would council consider extending the height of the fence or the glass screen around the Christmas tree by a metre or so, which may stop people climbing over it? It seems to be a little bit too easy. I did find that this last week from Sunday to Thursday, and it was fixed quickly. On Thursday, the lights, about 7,000 approximately, were out on the tree for that period, but very, very quickly a man with a ladder came and put them back on, but it shouldn't necessarily be so easy to disconnect them or whatever they did to them. Is that something council could look at? I understand it's not going to get it done this year.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Smith. Now, let me just answer that a little bit, and thank you for your question last Thursday. By the time council had finished its meeting and we had time to walk down to the mall to inspect what you had mentioned, there was already an officer there with the programmer ensuring that those lights, in which can do a multiple amount of displays, was doing more of the optimal display. As you mentioned, that perhaps what had been programmed wasn't as spectacular as what could have been, and we were able to look at the ease in which you can reach those baubles. And I think the report at that time was that we had, in the couple of weeks of being opening, we'd lost 3 baubles. And that's because of the voluptuous of the brand new tree and the old fence that's around it. Because the old tree had been so old and done such a great job for so long, the weight of Christmas had perhaps compacted it down a little. So when we had a new tree, it now sits here instead of where the old tree was. So we were very quick to also talk with Tas City Building and to look at other ways in which we can extend the perspex around the glass to just have that little bit more height to it, but also the angle of that as well. So that was a really quick response from councillors off the back of a really good observation of yours in the mall itself.
I have, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's quite a collection of baubles I have. Every morning I pick up baubles. I think we've got about 6 in the cafe, but they're all broken. I always tell council you can come pick them up any time. But they're anyway. There's quite a few missing. There'll be about 10 to 20 missing of the baubles at the moment. If you were to repair them. Another question I have, Mr. Mayor. I've read the notes to the financial report. Is there a period later on for asking about that, or is this the time to ask about the financial report? Do you ask later on for questions on that? I seem to think that is something.
So we will have a presentation.
But afterwards, is there a question on that? From memory, I think there is. But there is a question time that relates.
So with it being an active agenda item, if you were to ask a question now, it wouldn't be answered in the way that it would be because it's live.
Okay.
But we will have a presentation on the General Manager of Creative Arts also with that annual report. And there will be an option to ask questions and have at agenda item number 6. So it's only a couple away.
Sorry, so to be clear,
If you ask it now, that's where it will be answered.
but that's not speaking to the item, is that asking questions
You
about it at the end of an information?
You can ask the question now, but it will be answered and addressed in agenda item 6 because it's live agenda item.
Very well. Okay, thank you. I wasn't able to extract 2 figures I'm often asked about and myself wonder. That's total parking revenue for metered spaces on streets. I couldn't find that in there. It didn't jump out at me, nor last year's. And the other figure I look for is the total infringements for traffic infringements and parking for the year. That's not a figure I can identify, but it would be useful to know. Is that in there? Am I missing it, or is it not a figure
Sure.
that you produce?
Thank you for the question. As it's a live agenda item, we'll address that one in item 6.
Thank you.
But I can say that the acting CEO has written down the questions.
Thank you. There's a local paper, 5th of December, had an article about parking infringements in the city. And the article headline was "Christmas Pageant Ruined by Parking Ticket." It said that the Launceston City Council pageant was dampened by an unexpected parking ticket. As a Hobartian, they go on to say that parking was free in the city. I don't know if it is or not, as a gesture in Hobart, but this seems to be not the case in Launceston. Instead, it says slammed with a fine of $97.50. Merry Christmas to the greedy Launceston Council, not, exclamation mark. Is that $97.50, that jumps out as a figure that doesn't relate to any kind of on-street meter parking. This would suggest that this motorist parked in somewhere similar to a loading zone. That wouldn't be free in Hobart or Launceston. The same fine, $97.50, would apply in both at all times during the day of the parade. Do I have that right?
No, we've got a bylaw that was passed around penalty unit points in which we have aligned ourselves with the way that the state puts those penalty points to figure. So we have different penalty rates through our bylaws aligned to the state for on-street and for in-car parking. The loading zones are also they're different as well. So that's a different penalty.
Indeed, but this reads that they parked in a meter space and attracted a $100 fine. My understanding, if they parked anywhere in a meter space, it would be $30 to $40, and this seems to suggest that they parked in a loading zone on the day, so clearly they were doing something that was not permitted, either in Hobart or Launceston. You couldn't stop in a loading zone during the parade. Do I have that right?
Yes. If there's a loading zone there, you can't park there if you don't have authorisation, if it says between the hours of the functioning sign of the loading zone. But I can't speak to what parking ticket they've got as to where exactly they were without knowing or seeing or speaking to them what the ticket actually is.
But I think you could, Mr. Mayor, by the price is indicative. There'd be no parking ticket you could ever get on a metered space, which is $97.50. So by deduction, if they got this last week, it must have been something other than a metered space.
I will let the acting CEO speak because we do.
I don't know the particular spot where they're parking, but your interpretation sounds fairly correct.
Thank Another question, I was asked by another restaurateur to ask a question if time was available, and I think we haven't been 15 minutes.
So you're allowed 3 questions?
But there's 15 minutes allowed for questions, so the 3 question limit is waived if there's 15 minutes available of time. Do I have that correct? So the Local Government Act says you have 15 minutes.
Are you asking on behalf of someone else?
Well, with respect, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask either way, either myself or on behalf of someone else. But the 3 limit can be waived. It's something that council chooses to bring. My understanding is the 15 minutes must be provided irrespective of the limit you may wish to impose. It's not a local government rule that there's 3 question limit. I think it has been waived in the past and can be again.
It's on the council decision.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Councillors, let him answer. Okay, ask away.
The question from, well, I'll ask you, but it's from Jason Shelley. He has a cafe in George Street, Samuel Pepe's Cafe. I've explained to him my understanding of the hierarchy of parking usage in the city. His question is about older persons. So I understand that on-street parking is limited to an hour in the CBD, Central Activities area, and the idea is to get someone either to move to longer-term parking if the hour doesn't suit, they're quick in and out, or there's a 10 or 15-minute space shorter. But he has a lot of his customers who can't walk from the further out spaces, so the Elizabeth Street or the multi-storey in Patterson Street. What do I say to him and he say to his customers about people that have mobility issues when there's a 1 hour limit, but they want to sit in a cafe for more than an hour, but they can't walk from the multi-storey or the long-term car park?
Sure. Well, that's a part of our inclusion inquiries that we put through. We have committees based around these sorts of issues. So if these are issues that particular proprietor is finding, then it gets brought to council and we have discussions around what that looks like. I would advise people with mobility issues to ensure that they are going through the correct ways to look at having the right accreditation, to use the spots that we would like to provide for them nice and close. And if they're unable to do that, then that would be some advice that would be given, and we will take that on board as we look to do our traffic calming and our work in our city heart.
It didn't appear in the parking strategy that I referred to. Final question, Mr. Mayor. Would council, I have brought this up before with council, there's a practice of cleansing in the morning. Council use leaf blowers. They blow through the streets using petrol-powered leaf blowers, and they blow ahead of them all of the detritus, and then it's collected in the streets, crossing over where the street sweepers come through and pick up. Unfortunately, it's creating a lot of dust and mess, and it's going in shop entrances still. I did meet with was then Mayor Gibson, and we had a discussion about it. That was not quite a year ago, but nothing seems to come. We still have the same problem, and still have traders that keep coming up to me and say, well, council's still doing the same thing. Every day I have to tidy up the front of my shop, get out the vacuum cleaner, etc., etc. And what do I say to them, and how can I advance what they experience to council? You've clearly heard what I've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage you that if there is further and ongoing issues around this, get those shop front owners and those proprietors to send us through emails also. Let's look at where these issues are, because at the moment I feel confident to say that, Mr. Smith, you're the only one I've heard say anything about that at this particular moment, and I'm not saying that means it doesn't affect anybody else. But if there are continued issues around this, then we will address that, talk to our cleansing team once again. It's just that I haven't heard any more than this from you.
With respect, Mr. Mayor, no one had really heard about the tree, but that had been out for nearly a week. But it is a problem, Mr. Mayor. A lot of the stores are not permitted to go outside of the bounds of their operation. A lot of store managers can't contact council. It must go through head office. That's why you don't hear from a lot of national chains aren't allowed to go outside the bounds. That's one of the reasons. You hear from an independent, So I'm beholden to myself and answerable to myself, but a lot of stores are not permitted to speak out or contact council unless it's something of a very serious nature. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions without notice? There being none, we will move forward through to notices of motion. Agenda item number 5. There have been no notices of motion that have been identified as a part of this agenda. So moving through to our presentations now, throwing to the acting CEO, Shane.
So I'll start off with a short presentation before we've got a more fuller report in a YouTube clip regarding our achievements for the year. But some of the highlights from the year is we delivered in the end of term report for the previous council, the 4 years of work in terms of what they delivered. We completed an election and then a by-election, and we inducted the new council. So it's hard to believe it's just over a year since we went through some of that process. We've completed a regional sports facility plan, along with our neighbours, which will hopefully see more targeted investment in our sports facilities and more efficient use as we move forward. We've continued the implementation of our cultural roadmap with a cultural survey which showed a significant improvement in our organisational culture over the last 4 years. We're continuing to progress with our corporate applications replacement program, which will run over several years and not only see efficiency achieved for the organisation, but also greatly improve customer experiences for those that wish to come in online. We're continuing working through the implementation of the UTAS the stadium's future direction plan, developed the urban greening strategy. We secured the funding for the $43 million Northern Suburbs Community Recreation Hub, which is heading into construction shortly. Developed the City of Launceston Sustainability Action Plan and continued the implementation of the Launceston City Deal. So during the year we completed $18 million worth of capital works, which was actually an extraordinary effort considering our projects delivery team were running at around 50% vacancies, and we had a flood in the middle of that. But we continue to work on redevelopment of the Albert Hall. We implemented trials in terms of the arbours and rain gardens in the CBD. We've invested in the Bowls Club, the pool and Memorial Hall at Lilydale, millions of dollars in roads and footpath upgrades. Significant upgrades to the Birch Avenue and Churchill Park sporting precincts, and I think we could fairly comfortably say in terms of junior soccer that we're offering the best facilities nationally by far. Works in Unum Creek to retain the failing riverbanks. An upgrade of the North-Esk Trail Boardwalk, so you can now get there and back even when the tide changes. Road Safety Centre continues. We've done a number of building upgrades at both QV-MAG sites, including building management systems, LED lighting across the galleries, humidifiers, planetarium, and some exhibition-specific equipment. We extended the car park, Riverbend Park, to support the rowing precinct, but also the terrific numbers that we've been getting to the facility. Redeveloped the West Hamer Trail car park. For many years it was full of potholes. We can't fix the flooding in high tide, but a significant improvement to the amenity there. We've commenced an occupancy signage project, so as you travel into the city, there's LED signage that we're continuing to deliver in this year, which will show occupancy rates for our car parks. Some renewals of CBD toilets, and we've started on some significant flood levy upgrade renewals, which will continue into the new year. In terms of financial performance, we returned an operational deficit of $3.4 million, which was against a planned budgeted deficit of $2.9 million. So some of the differences that occurred during the year was we had higher than expected residential growth, so more rate income. We had nearly $3 million in interest income, which was nearly zero, I think, the previous year, and $2.7 million in increased fees. Unfortunately, these increases in revenue were offset by higher expenditure in materials and services, primarily driven by the economic conditions. The increased cost of materials and services and contractors also, as a result, drive up depreciation costs. And we had our election expenses last year. So, but all in all, we're actually we're still in line with our long-term financial plan in terms of recovering from the COVID pandemic.
The 2022-23 financial year was full of activity at the City of Launceston. The Council began the financial year by reaffirming its support for the Launceston Gastronomy Project, which is seeking to leverage opportunities from the City's designation as a UNESCO Creative City of Gastronomy. In July, the Council's mental health initiative Barbers for Life was presented with a People's Choice Award at the Australian Men's Health Forum's 2022 Men's Health Awards. The Barbers for Life project offered Launceston barbers and community members the opportunity to undertake a mental health first aid course, building the relationships between barbers and clients. In August, the Council partnered with the Launceston Library and charity Share the Dignity to install a new Dignity vending machine in the library. The machine is one of 280 across Australia and dispenses free sanitary products to those in need. In September, the Council completed construction of a new ash placement garden at Cardwell Memorial Park, known as the Garden of Memories, and offering more than 4,700 ash placements. The Council continued a major redevelopment of the Launceston Road Safety Centre throughout the year. Following a major landslip at the site in 2019, the Council has been undertaking a multi-stage redevelopment of the site, designed to transform the ageing community asset into a contemporary, fit-for-purpose, transport-themed play centre. The facility is expected to reopen to the public in 2024. The Council also continued a public expressions of interest process for the redevelopment of the Birchwood site, seeking proposals from the private sector for appropriate future redevelopments for the building. As part of the ABCD Learning Site Kings Meadows program, the Council expanded its free public Wi-Fi network into Kings Meadows for the first time. Now the largest free public Wi-Fi network in the state, the Launceston Wi-Fi network can be accessed in locations including the CBD, Inveresk, Riverbend Park, Mowbray, Waverley, Rochely and more. Following heavy rain in northern Tasmania's river catchments in October, the City of Launceston's flood response was escalated in low-lying areas of the city. A number of floodgates were closed across the city as the Council worked with emergency services to activate the city's flood defence system. That system comprises more than 12 kilometres of earth and concrete levees, 19 floodgates and a network of river height sensors which provide emergency services with real-time data on flooding in our major river catchments. The 700-metre-long Newstead flood levee, which was constructed following the 2016 floods, was tested for the first time and performed within expectations to prevent inundation in low-lying parts of the suburb. The Council completed a $300,000 upgrade of the Lilydale swimming pool's heating system, installing 2 energy-efficient 60-kilowatt heat pumps. A $100,000 upgrade of flooring in Lilydale Memorial Hall was also completed, along with the installation of Lilydale's first public 22-kilowatt electric vehicle charging station. The City of Launceston completed its review into the introduction of rental e-scooters in the city, following regulatory changes from the state government which allowed both private and rental e-scooters to be used on most local roads, footpaths and cycling trails across Tasmania. The Council continued to work with its Launceston City Deal partners on projects for the city and successfully sought funding from the state and federal governments for a new Northern Suburbs recreation hub and significant upgrades at UTAS Stadium. The Council also progressed its intention to transfer ownership of UTAS Stadium to a new state government entity, Stadiums Tasmania, a move intended to put the stadium on a sustainable path for the future. Throughout the year, the Council undertook a number of public consultations as part of its Tomorrow Together community engagement program, including seeking feedback on the draft urban greening strategy and proposed speed limit reductions in the CBD, along with the Council's annual budget. As in previous years, the Council oversaw its annual fuel reduction program, which aims to reduce fire hazards in our public parks and reserves. In total, 14 fuel reduction burns were undertaken at locations across the municipality, with multiple burns at some sites. Launceston CBD shop occupancy rates continue to track at record levels, with data from the State of the City report indicating that more than 91% of retail ground floor premises in the city were trading during the year. The City of Launceston approved $315 million in development projects during the 2022-23 financial year across more than 630 individual planning applications. This was up from $238 million worth of planning approvals across 674 applications in the previous financial year. It's been a busy 12 months at the City of Launceston, and we look forward to working with our community in the year ahead to make Launceston an even better place to live, work and invest.
So I'll hand over to Shane Fitzgerald, now General Manager of Creative Arts and Culture, to present the annual report for Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery.
So thank you, and thank you for that. I'm really pleased to give a high-level, succinct summary of the achievements for QVMag for the year just past. It's been a really busy year for the institution following the endorsement adoption of the QVMag Futures Plan of June 30 last year. A significant achievement for us was the quantitative result of the general visitation to the institution during that period. We received over 158,000 visitors to QVMag during that period, reflecting the highest visitation it's ever received in its 130-year history, which is a great outcome. Of that, there's 100,000 or so visitors from Tasmania, just shy of 40,000 visitors from Australia, and nearly 13,000 visitors from overseas, international visitors, which is a fantastic result. Strategic development work continues at the institution during this period as a result of the organisational strategic development program identified in the Futures Plan. During that period, we have drafted 14 of our 17 strategies, which is not an insignificant undertaking, which will be developed and implemented in the next financial year. So that's a great outcome from the team. These strategies represent the shift and the change of what we've been undertaking as a result of the Futures Plan, which is reflected also in the results that we've achieved through the year previous. During the year, we conducted 43 exhibitions across both the Art Gallery at Royal Park and also the museum at Inveresk. That's up from 20 the year prior, so that's a significant increase. And for the first time ever, we have seen a larger amount of exhibition frequency changeover at the gallery as opposed to the museum, and a record attendance to those exhibitions. During that period of those exhibitions, we engaged and employed and contracted over 125 living practitioners within our community, which is a fantastic result. 22 of those exhibitions included local components to them. So that's local artists, creatives, makers, educators being involved in those exhibitions and projects. 30 were temporary, 24 were QVMag original products, so not bought in from mainland Australia or other institutions, but developed wholly from our wealth of knowledge and expertise within our community and our collection. And 494 primary and secondary students were exhibited in our exhibitions across our sites, supporting that educational development in the visual arts and sciences. A key highlight of that period was, of course, the Archie 100, the Century of the Archibald Prize exhibition, was the exclusive venue in Tasmania for its national tour. We attracted 16,000 visitors to this ticketed exhibition, quite significant ticket sales at just over 185,000, and it contributed nearly $5 million into the city's economy, which is a fantastic result for cultural tourism. On our education front, which is a primary aspect of what we focus on, we saw an increased result of student engagement, both primary and secondary and homeschooled. And we've also expanded further afield with the reach that QVMag has as a destination of choice for educators to southern parts of Tasmania, but more pleasingly with schools making dedicated trips from New South Wales and Victoria to the institution to undertake those education activities. We had just over 8,600 students from 93 schools. We had a staggering 1,500 students participating in Science Week, which is our biggest, particularly our big day of science, and we gave 79 school tours. Public programs are on the increase as a result of that increased quantitative result of our visitation. We had 366 programs delivered during the calendar year and just over 24,000 general program attendees. Interestingly for us, our exhibition programs were on the increase at 51, but the majority of our programs are standalone umbrella programs and something that is really pleasing to the communities. We see that engagement. We continue to focus on community connections as one of our key strategic focuses. In that we had 10 community connections programs such as NAIDOC Week, Lunar New Year, Science Week and so forth, with 422 attendees to that. From a business perspective, even though we are a non-profit cultural institution here for the public, we do look at opportunities to supplement our revenue that we receive from the City of Launceston. We did receive a commercial outcome of $872,000, representing the highest on record for the institution. We had a staggering increase in donations, bequests and grants at 1.8 million, and we'd like to thank all of those generous donors in the community and further afield for their support. We undertook and responded to just shy of 5,000 public inquiries and research inquiries, which represents around 8.5 hours a day, every day, responding to the community's calls. We have a dedicated and passionate group of volunteers, 61 in total in that year, contributing 2,400 odd hours to the institution, and we'd like to deeply thank them for their support as well. All told, with our public programs and artists, we implemented and supported 217 living producers and practitioners. That's educators, artists, arts workers, and activities at QBMag, putting that money back into our region and back into our city. And our shop had a staggering result with $570,000 profit return for the institution. In marketing communications, we rolled out and really focused on the adoption of the new brand that we would hope most people have seen across the city. It's been responded to very well, and we've had significant 100+% increase across all marketing communications reach across all platforms. In total, we had an organic reach of about 5.29 million impressions globally. Our social media reach staggeringly went up to 471,000 odd organic reach. Instagram has grown steadily, Facebook impressions is growing staggeringly, and website page views are on the increase as well, quite significantly. And also the depth and quality of the website page views, people are staying on the website looking longer and researching the collection, particularly online. In research, being a research institute, we identified and now described by science 12 new Tasmanian species which form part of Australia's taxonomic record. We currently have a further 12 species that have been found, and we are working with colleagues globally on identifying and describing them through science, and they will be registered next year. We digitised 18,000 odd specimens onto the online collection, and we also moved into a 3D photogrammetry initiative, and the collection, particularly in natural sciences, can be accessed in that fashion now. One of the first in Tasmania to undertake that initiative. We had 32 formal researchers from around the planet come and visit and work in the collection during that 12 months, and a further 120 independent research site visits for just quick research and access to the collection. And we are very pleased to say that we've reached a milestone record on the Atlas of Living Australia of surpassing over 100,000 taxonomic records available globally now from that collection. In our collections area, we exhibited just shy of 8,000 objects from the collection, which is a staggering result. We did remedial and preventative conservation to 2,400 objects, ensuring that those collection objects remain in good condition in perpetuity for our community. We've audited 7,500 objects throughout the collection, and we received a total of 263 acquisitions to the collection at a value of just shy of 900,000, which is quite a significant addition. Of that, we purchased around 120,000 worth, and the other remaining amount were kind donations from throughout Australia. So a good year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanes. Looking to have somebody move the report. Deputy Mayor to move. Councillor Harris to second. Would you like to speak as the mover?
briefly, I mean, I think it's all been said by the acting CEO and General Manager of QV Mag, but I think there's been certainly a lot happen in Launceston over the last 12 months. And I think that particularly QV Mag gives me great pleasure to see what's happened there. And we've worked very hard. Well, I know Shane and his team worked very hard to get to where they've got to in regards to that, and only can see an upward trajectory in regards to that. And I can't wait to be going to the dark side of the moon sometime shortly in the planetarium. Yeah, look, I think Council's been very, very busy across all of its areas, and whilst we don't always meet community expectations on the things that we do, we continue to try to improve what we do and determine a result. I mean, I think our financial results demonstrate good stewardship of our funds in that we, I think, showed about 4.1 million net surplus. Appreciate 7 of that is capital, so therefore probably a $3 million net sense in relation to what we've earned in the last year, but in line with projections, or actually better than projections as we go forward. Our long-term financial plan moves us gradually back into a profitable situation, which is a bounce back from what we saw during COVID, and therefore there's still a number of things that we still need to do and get right. I note that within the commentary in the Examiner recently about our loss on Birchall's building, or mooted loss in regards to that, that's yet to be realised. And what people don't understand is we actually bought a building, but we're actually moving and selling something which is actually different to the building that we bought. At the end of the day, when we look for the community thoroughfare that will go through there, it'll be public realm and so forth like that. So in looking at what it is that we do with Birchall's, it's all about activating the mall. It's all about future direction of what we want to do, and clearly we're all perhaps a tad frustrated it hasn't quite moved as quickly as we would like it to have done, but hopefully sometime in the new year we'll see that our Birchall's acquisition will actually add significantly to the fabric of Launceston and its surrounds. So I think that whilst we aren't perfect, there are a lot of very, very good things that have been done, and I certainly acknowledge the work of the team that have worked for the council, and noting when you look through some of our current budgetary things in relation to our workforce, a little bit under stress in regards to we don't quite have filled positions in some areas, and a lot of people acting in a number of other areas, which certainly does constrain your ability to do things. But I'd like to thank the diligence of all the people who work within the council and go out every day to try and make a difference to the community that we live in.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Harris is the seconder. Any other further questions or comments around the table? CFO.
Just to answer the question from the floor regarding the parking revenue for the year. So if you refer to page 134 of the annual report, there's a couple of notes in there which do specify those amounts. So note 2.2, statutory fees and fines, is a line item in there for infringement and costs. The bulk majority of that does relate to parking. There are other bits and pieces in there such as health and building infringements, but the majority of that is parking. And then if you look on the same page under note 2.3 user fees, you'll see a line item in there for parking fees and charges, which is fairly self-explanatory.
Thank you, CFO. No further comments around the table? Nothing further to close, Deputy Mayor? Okay, putting it to the vote then. All those in favour to accept the reports? Motion is carried. Well, thank you everybody for attending the AGM for 2023. As we wrap it up, and wish you well for the rest of your night and the rest of your week and weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.